Welcome back to Wealth Plan TV. This week we're looking at outs and ins, or cash management. Last time we visited cash management, we labelled up the expenses. We labelled mandatory red and we labelled manageable orange and mayhem green. We worked through those headings, if you remember. We accepted that mandatory expenses couldn't be changed. We sort of spent a little bit of work with the manageable ones to see if they could be reduced. And we really did sort of slash out the green expenses, the mayhem ones. That's all very well with doing that with a click of the mouse, but if you actually got to save money in your budget, that's hard work. So this week we'll look at 42, well I'm telling a lie, this week we'll start at looking at 42 different ways to reduce expenses or just save money, just to get those green expenses down. So get your pens out and pay attention. Okay, number one, shopping. And we'll work on food first. And the most important thing when you're shopping is to make a shopping list. Supermarkets feature heavily in shopping, and supermarkets spend a small fortune to get you to buy more stuff at the supermarket. Things like the choice of background music, aisle placement, putting the most easily purchased items at the checkout where they can fall into your trolley easily. Use of smell. It's not a surprise that most supermarkets now have bakeries. You buy more where things smell nice. Size and colours of signs. And have you ever wondered why baskets are hard to find and trolleys are easy to find? Empty trolleys just beg to be filled up. So don't be manipulated into buying more that you want. Use a list and shop off the list only. Okay, people have told me they have trouble in putting a list together, but okay, it's a skill. Once you learn it, it's pretty easy. But if you're one of those, just start with two basic components. Firstly, build your shopping list from a meal plan. So say, hey, this week we're going to have hamburgers, salmon, whatever it might be, a salad, and shop off that. So take your meal list and put it on a shopping list. The other component of the shopping list is what's been used or thrown out. Well, we'll talk about thrown out later. What's been used. So whoever uses it puts it on the list. If it's not on the list, don't buy it. You're bound to have your kids or your husband saying, oh, we're out of this, we're out of that, we're out of this, because they didn't put it on the list. Well, don't take responsibility for that. Tell them that it wasn't bought because it wasn't on the list and you only buy from a list. It's pretty easy to train children, and husbands aren't so far behind. The other thing about shopping in supermarkets is don't be loyal. If it's cheaper somewhere else, go somewhere else. Shop alone, if that's possible, because you tend to be more focused, there's less distractions. Definitely don't shop when you're hungry. There's been so many surveys that say that we buy more when we're hungry. I suppose when we're shopping for food, that's not a surprise. Packaged food and vegetables are often more expensive in supermarkets, so why don't you rock on down to your local shop and see if you can buy them at the same or even a cheaper price. That's pretty good because it supports the local community. And the other thing is, if you buy from the local shop, it might still be there when you actually need it. Shopping online is becoming more and more possible. You still need to shop with a list though. Don't just sit at the computer and interact with the shopping experience. When you're shopping online, a list is still useful, but if you found trouble with a list and you shop online, interact with the pantry. So say, oh, okay, I need flour, get up, wander into the pantry. If you've still got enough flour for that week, leave it and buy it next week. If goods are delivered from the supermarket and they're not quite right or short dated, ring the supermarket and get them to fix it. They generally will with no hassle and maybe even give you a little bit of a bonus. But hey, if they don't, social media is there to expose people who don't do the right thing, and if you're an internet savvy person, clearly you are because you're buying online, use that to your advantage. When was the last time you went to a market? A good market has got a great range of food, lots of different price points, so it's quite possible to get fresh food at a cheaper price in a market. If you haven't been to a market for a while, why don't you try it? What else is good about markets? Well, one of my pet hates about supermarkets is what I call cosmetic fruit and vegetables. Supermarkets reject blemished or undersized fruit, or even fruit that's ripe, because it doesn't have a long shelf life. In markets, you can beat this because you can buy blemished fruit, which is absolutely perfect. The best bananas I ever bought were some I found in the not quite right basket at a supermarket, and they were just right. They mightn't have been the next day, but the day I ate them, they were perfect. The other thing about markets is that you can buy fruit what I call the right size. I mean a bite-sized apple, not a monster. Okay, we're up to about tip number 7. And this is consider using own brand products. Supermarkets' own brands are fine, but just don't assume because the label's a different colour that the goods in it are the same as the other coloured label. Check it out. Most food labels have the percentage of the major ingredient on them. If you're comparing an own brand with a name brand, have a look. If the name brand has 60% of the main ingredient and the own brand has 40%, maybe it's not a bargain. But hey, if you're getting the same amount and you think it tastes the same, then buy the cheaper product. Another thing is to bin ready meals. We won't go to ready meals. I like the idea that supermarkets use celebrity chefs to put together menus that you can buy from the raw ingredients. Listing a recipe and the cost of the ingredients it's a useful tip. Not only do you cook fresh, but it's also much healthier. You're also not ambushed by salt and sugar and food enhancers and taste enhancers that generally are wrapped up in these foods to make them really edible and nice and easy to buy. Use by dates. Now use by dates are a great innovation when you're buying food, so you're buying as fresh as you can. But in your pantry, use by dates aren't necessarily an advantage. Nowadays we've come used to saying, okay, the use by date's gone and throwing it out. Don't do that. Open it up. If it's still good, use it. But use it today, not tomorrow. Okay, other shopping tips. Now the first one is learn to say no. If you can't shop alone, and there's many of you who can't, just don't give in to the demands of children who think that a performance will get them what they want. I concede it's easier to give them what they want, but saying no a couple of times will soon fix the problem. Children are quick to learn, and if a strategy doesn't work, they'll stop using it. Learn to say, that's for women of course, learn to say no at the pub as well, and that's for blokes. How often does a quick cleansing ale turn into an expensive session? Saying no even just a few times a month can make a big difference to your budget. If you're only planning to have one beer, don't join a shout, and that way you can leave without recriminations. Okay, we're up to tip 10. You can see it's going to take us 2 episodes to do this. Don't buy designer labels. Well, maybe, but the women you see wearing designer labels, the models and the fashionistas, they've all had those clothes given to them to wear. If you're not that fortunate to have designer label clothes given to you and you have to buy them, think about it a little bit. If you're going to spend a lot of money on an item of clothing, just make sure you can wear it a few times. It's not my forte, but I'm told you can dress things up and down. Just plan for an expensive purchase to do that. Try taking a chance when you're buying clothes. Don't buy it now. Wait for the sale and hope it'll still be there. Even if it's not there when it comes to the sale, you might even find something that's better. So join that store's email news list so you're aware of when the sales are coming up, and be there early and see if you can buy your item. I've got a client who reckons she saves over 40% in purchases, and rarely does she go to a sale and not have the item she was seeking available and in her size. Why don't you try it? Maybe worth a go. Okay, still at shopping tips, number 12, the Christmas lottery. Instead of buying a present for all your relatives, why don't you set up a family Kris Kringle? I know they're becoming more popular, but there's a reason for it. It makes the shopping better because you can spend more money and not just buying rubbish. The person who receives the gift generally gets a better gift, and it's cheaper all round. A bit of fun too. Okay, Christmas presents, why don't you buy them at the January sale? Bit boring, I hear you say, and it probably is, but why don't you plan the purchases throughout the year, through sales throughout the year? So maybe pick some up in June and some up in August. It spreads the buying experience and even the joy of buying other people presents throughout the whole year, instead of making it a pain at the end of the year. Do you pay your insurance premiums monthly? This is the last tip. Well, if you do, if you think about it, the insurance company is lending you 11 months premium, and no one really does that for nothing. The premium for monthly payment is often 5 to 10%. So Why don't you get your budget going and plan to pay these expenses annually and save yourself 10% on the bill? There are some insurance companies who make a point of expressing that they don't load monthly premiums, but maybe they've loaded the annual premium. So check it out, because with the loading on the annual premium, you might find that paying annually another company might be less expensive. Okay, that's all we have time for in outs and ins in cash management. The mathematicians amongst you will realise we've got 24 tips to go, and we'll cover those next week. Under debt. It's a bit of a cheat, I think, but probably not, because if we save money, the most sensible place to put it is in debt. So we'll carry on with the tips next week, and we'll see you after the break, where we'll be talking to Dale.